Hello and welcome to the Good Vibrations podcast, a podcast put together by the people from Good Vibrations Society, an annual festival that takes place, been going for the last 5 years. And this space here is one where we can share the stories from the event. We can share what it is to make a festival, what goes on behind it, but also crucially explore the things that we celebrate in the event. So community, music, well-being, ecology, and we're going to get under the skin of those things. So this podcast here is an introduction. It's going to be explaining a little bit about what's gone on, how we've got here, having started in 2021, and then what it's going to be. We also want this to be a community-led show, and so we've got some questions at the end of the show where I'll be answering things that have come to us through our social media from our existing community, but also anyone watching this, please feel free to let us know in the comments any questions that you might have. Email us any questions you might have or any ideas for the podcast. So here we are, Good Vibrations Society podcast. Let's go. So we should probably start where it all began. I've been running festivals since I was 21 years old. I won't tell you how old I am now, but you can work it out. And for the last 18 years, I've been running shows every year. COVID kicked in and that kind of put a dampener on any live music, on any performance, any outdoor events. And at the end of COVID, I moved back down to Forest Row, which is a village where I grew up in Sussex. And I realized that there's an opportunity to start an event for this community. And I wanted to create something that was for this community. So before the festivals I ran before, Outlook and Dimensions Festival, Sunfall Festival, very electronic music centered, a lot of soul music in there as well, reggae, but for a particular energy, electronic music, you know, for people to go and dance to. And when I first looked at this area and asked myself the question, what do people from here want? That's when this event was born. And so it was recognizing the importance of events for community, celebrating music. That's my passion. That's where I've spent all of my professional life. Wellbeing, which is coming from a lot of journeying that I've done myself, and early 30s, midlife crisis, early midlife crisis, and what come out of that. And then ecology. And ecology is a really interesting element of it. I didn't even know what the word meant, if I'm honest, when I first said it. And then slowly over the years, I've come to appreciate that it's our relationship with the natural world. And so the festival was born in 2021. And we just had our 5th year last summer, 2025. It's a weird way that the years and dates work. But that was our 5th year, and we're going into our 6th year now. And we are in December at the turn of the year. So at this time, it's important for me to send a lot of love out to, I think, the people that have come and made this event what it is. So when I had the idea for an event, I got in touch with a venue and a site here in the local area. I actually went to this venue on the millennium, year 2000, when I was 16. And it was the first party that they'd ever put on at Pippingford. I didn't know this at the time, but I got back in touch with Richard, who runs Pippingford. And I asked him whether he was open to maybe putting on another festival at Pippingford. And it was born out of that conversation where I met someone who really, really cared about the natural world. And it was amazing. I was inspired when I met Richard because he has grown up on that land. Pippingford is a part of the Ashdown Forest, which is this huge heathland, one of the few, maybe the second largest heathland in the country, I think. Don't quote me on that one. And Pippingford is a private space that Richard grew up on. And when he went into his adult life, he realized that actually his main aim needed to be to maintain the natural order of things on this land. And so he's dedicated his life to making sure that he can preserve the amazing nature that exists on Pippingford Park, so that he can maintain it, so that he can hand that on to his children. And it was really inspiring, and I felt his passion and I felt his love, and that really, really got me going and got me excited about what could happen. And so then I got in touch with Dougie, who's the sound engineer in the band that I'm in, Gentleman's Dub Club. And Dougie runs a production company. So he's got a lot of amazing sound systems, a lot of speakers, and a lot of other production stuff. And so I felt like this coming together of these three different parties would be enough to build an event. But of course, if you organise an event, you just come up with an idea, and then that idea plays out in front of you. And our responsibility is to listen and to try and nurture that idea, but really to try and welcome in the local community, welcome in people's ideas, tune into their experience of our ideas and see how that then develops on. And that was really the way that it was born. And every year it's just slowly built and built and built and grown. And I'd like to describe it as breathing out each year. So no major changes, small, keep it sustainable, make sure that we're doing it in the right way. And that's kind of how we've gotten to here. The main areas of the festival were born out of that original idea, but the amazing thing is that over the years we've had a chance to really, really learn and grow within those areas. So I want to use this podcast as an opportunity to explore them a little bit further. So I'm just going to go into those main areas. And one thing is a community event. So clearly, like, the importance of community is everywhere, right? It's essential. I remember my experience of community has changed. I grew up in a small, close-knit community. Then I lived in big cities, and then I actually tried to move to another country as well. And so I saw the importance of community, how difficult it often was to get that sense of community and togetherness. And then the extension of that, how important events can be for that sense of togetherness and the community spirit. And I've seen that grow and I've seen that build. And we tried to do things throughout the year where we can maintain a relationship with this group of people, and we can, as I said before, listen really intently to what they want the event to be. But I've seen it flourish because, you know, there's a few lovely examples, like a guy called Dino. He came and he volunteered in year one, and then in year two we gave him a paid position, and then in year three he was running a venue. And it's that kind of relationship building that gives me purpose and reason to run the event, because it was someone who just came off his own back, of his own energy, of his own steam, to come and be a part of something. And he very much did become a part of it, and it has been a big part of his life in that time as well. Another example of it is my old class teacher, Kirstine Whitby. She offers free tea at the event. So throughout the weekend, her and a group of her family members give out free tea, which has just been an amazing part of what we do, and clearly so important. You know, anyone that needs a cup of tea, anyone that maybe needs a chat, anyone that needs a bit of space, that's where they can go. And crucially, it's been run by my old school teacher that I first met when I was 3 years old. And for me, that's the essence of what community is. It's working together. It's collaborating to, you know, create bigger things than we alone could create. There's also spaces within the event for food and giving talks and running classes and performing on stages. And I will always try and look to the existing community first before I reach out. So over the last 3 years, we've opened up applications and had a formal application process for bands and for people to come and talk and contribute workshops to the event. And I've just been amazed at how amazing people are. The standard that has come to me for either emerging acts or people with just a passion for a particular subject, and how them approaching and us giving a space for them to pitch in and express themselves, how that just has really made the event possible. You know, is underpinning everything that we do is the passion that people bring to us, and then we literally just create the space and hopefully make sure there's a few people there to see it. So yeah, that's kind of like the foundations of the event, the community, and then what comes out of that, the music that comes out of it, the wellbeing, workshops, classes, walks around the Ashdown Forest, and crucially our relationship to each other and to the world around. So this podcast is another example of why community is important, and hopefully how it can come together to create something. So we want this to be a space to be open to questions that come in. Hopefully we're going to look at doing some live versions of this podcast as well, so that we can really meet people in person, but also that any questions people might have, any inquiries, please do get in touch, and we can use that and help it to inform what we're going to do, because I need to know what you think of it. Is there any point in what we're doing? What are we missing out on? Tell me my blind spots. So this core intention with the podcast is to simply create a space where we can really explore all of these areas of the event and that we really care about, but really it's wider than that. The Good Vibrations podcast is an opportunity to send good vibes out to the world. And so later on, we're going to be exploring a few good vibe stories that are out there that have come across our bow, but also the stories that are naturally born out of these areas and what people come with and how it feels. So we're going to be interviewing people. So we're going to divide these episodes out into different core areas of the event. This one is an intro, a pilot, see whether you like it. And then we're going to be exploring, I think the one in January is music to go alongside our artist announcement. Right, now we're going to get into the Good Vibes news. So I've been scouring the internet, I've been listening in, I've been speaking to people, and I found a few amazing little nuggets out there that are hopefully going to bring some joy to your day. I personally avoid a lot of the mainstream news. It gets me down a lot of the time. I do go through sections of listening really closely and other times of just not having it in my daily routine. However, I've got some news stories that you're going to want to have in your everyday. And if you know of any that I haven't thought of or that I haven't stumbled across, please do let me know. So the first one is going to be an amazing story, very much a community story. A small town in Wales, a group of neighbours got together and they created what they called a library of things. And so anything that anyone didn't want, they asked them to bring it out and donate it, and then anyone that wanted something could go in and take from that donation. And the amazing story is that after 2 months, they saved over 3 tons of waste in that village. 3 tons of waste. Plus, they had the opportunity to talk to each other. They had the opportunity to meet people that they wouldn't have otherwise known. And so really, it was a mental health as well as a natural health thing. I think that's fantastic. And I reckon every single community would benefit from a project like that. I know that I would like to. Maybe we need to start one. Right, the next nugget of news that I stumbled across is, and you might have heard about this one, there's a lot of negativity around grassroots music venues in the UK at the moment. A lot of them closing down, a lot of struggling musicians finding it hard to get into venues that are right for them at that point in their career. And so, you might have heard, but Sam Fender gave £25,000, which was his total Mercury Music Prize money, to support grassroots venues. Plus, there are several artists now that are putting money from every single one of their ticket sales into supporting grassroots music venues. So if you are tuned in right now and you're an artist or anyone that wants to give back, go and check that out. Go and check those resources. I think it's the Independent Venues Trust that you need to get in touch with. But also, vote with your feet. Go out and support live music. Go out and support new musicians. Even if you don't know who they are, think of what they could be. Number 3 in our news section is Good Vibrations in Action. So a study of 7,000 people found that small acts of kindness, holding a door, sharing food, telling someone you appreciate them, creates measurable boosts in serotonin in both the giver and the receiver. Kindness literally changes our brains, right? So I don't know if you've heard about this as well. There's something called kinesthesia. Now, I don't know a huge amount about it, but I am aware that if I say good things, then I feel good. If I say negative things, then I feel negative. And so we got to check in on that. We got to make sure that we're doing our bodies and the bodies around us a kindness. And just one more amazing story that I found out about recently. from Brighton. It was a teenager that found an old disposable camera on the beach. They developed the film and discovered photos from a couple's honeymoon taken 20 years earlier. This happened just this summer. And with the help of the internet, they tracked down that couple and returned the photos, sparking a reunion and new friendship. Isn't that beautiful? You know, again, reasons to remind us that we are living together. We are cohabiting on this planet, and we need to explore the potential within our relationships, you know? And that was the Good Vibes News. If you've heard any stories in your local area, then please do get in touch. Let us know what we don't already. When I looked to design this festival, I wanted to try and create a site that people could be within without necessarily knowing what's happening around them. And so I saw this line of the site as being, we had this high street up and down the middle of it. And I really, really wanted to try and create a journey down that high street, which was similar to a tree. Without wanting to sound too floaty, similar to a tree. So at the bottom of the tree, we have roots, right? And that's actually where you'll find our root venue. Rooting or grounding is a big part of what we do down in that area. Very important if you're at a festival or in your everyday life to ground, but particularly if you're at a festival, you've been out dancing, you've been out, you know, enjoying music and enjoying conversation, and then having a space in the morning or in the afternoon, whenever you choose to wake up, to go and really ground. And so there's yoga classes and meditation in there, and also further that it's grown out. And so we've got our spa area there, big up to the Enchanted Glade, as well as healthy food and healthy drinks that you can enjoy too. So that's the root, that's the grounding, the bottom of the tree. And then as you move up, we actually find our first venue off the side, which we call branches, and that's where we have talks. So throughout Saturday and Sunday, we've got talks. Some of them are curated by the Ashdown Forest Foundation, and the other ones are put together by us as an event. And those come in from people who have applied to talk, as well as talks that we've gone out there and actively found ourselves. And so branches, new ideas, a space where people can discuss like cutting edge ideas and work that they've been doing, share passions that they have and things that they've spent often their lives dedicated to. And so that's the branches. And then as you go further up, actually on this next branch that goes out, we find a venue called the Nest. And so that's our space to nurture talent. Everyone that performs in the Nest has got in touch with us through the application process, and we've spent hours and hours and hours, days and days and days listening and putting together that collection of musicians. But it really is an opportunity for people who generally it's at two sides of their career, right? So people that are just starting and that they need to perform live and they need to get their name out there, or they're from the local area and it's an opportunity for them to have a bit of a podium. And then people who also maybe are at different times in their career, and for whatever reason, mostly because they live locally, they just have that passion and that desire to perform and to share. And so we try and offer opportunities for them as well. So we got the roots, and then we go up and we got the branches, and then we go up and we got the nest, and then as we get up to the top area, that's where we have our bloom stage. That's where the flowers can exist, and the leaves at the top of this tree gets the maximum amount of sunlight. And yeah, so that's where most of our major live acts happen. It's where we have our bigger DJs as well. And so that's really the place for play. That's where we have the Hive as well, which is an evolving playscape. Big up to Alice and Panda and the gang behind that venue too. So yeah, just trying to kind of imitate these experiences of trees, and you could also view it as I often did view it and have viewed it as like the body as well, right? So the high street being the spine, and at the bottom of the spine there's the root, and then as you go up the spine you get to the very top, which is where we have our head, which opens up to the sky, right? We're very similar to the tree. In fact, we are very similar to trees. community Q&A. Right, so we got a few questions in already, but I want you, if you're watching now, to have a little think and be like, what do I really want to know? What do I want to ask Johnny about? What do I want to know about this festival? What do I want to know about the good vibrations? So the first one that comes in, it was actually a question from a customer that asked about what we do with our rubbish, because we seemingly don't have any recycling, or we don't divide our bins up between plastics and food waste and general waste like you see at a lot of events. And it's a really, really commonly asked question, and I just wanted to answer it. You know, with us as an event, being within nature, within the woods, but also discussing ecology, discussing our relationship to the natural world, a big thing that I've had to wrestle with myself is that obviously putting on an event has an impact on nature. It does have a negative impact on nature. All of those cars driving into one place, some of the diesel that needs to be burned to run the generators, I recognise that, right? So I had to wrestle with it myself, and where I felt at ease within that is that if we do a lot of work to minimise our impact, and then we also do a lot of work to maximise the impact of the messaging that we put out there, then actually there's a balance there. And that maybe there's a power from having thousands of people that come and have an experience where they're in nature, they're living within nature, especially if they're from a city, but also anyone, and to learn to appreciate nature, develop their relationship to it. And then we have all of these nuggets throughout the event, which allow people to take them into their everyday life. You know, for example, a talk by Zafia Page that I remember a couple of years ago. She runs a group called Friends of the River Medway, and it's a charity being set up to look after this main river that goes through the local area. And her talk was very much about, we'll just be aware of what we're putting into the River Medway. Let's build up our reverence of this river, the importance of the water, even though these days a lot of the time we don't realise how important local rivers are. But you know, what are we choosing to put down the plug hole? How are we dealing with our own personal waste? If we care about that, is that informing our purchase decisions? You know, and the things we choose to buy and how we then use them. So those messages are really crucial. And sorry, that just to answer the question directly, what do we do with all of our waste? So we've got quite an amazing setup in place. So firstly, 0% of our waste on site goes to landfill. All of our rubbish goes to a first sorting centre where all of the plastics are taken out, where all of the waste is taken out. Then it goes to another sorting centre down on the south coast, where any extra bits like metals or woods or anything like that is all divided out, and anything that can't be recycled from that then gets burned and goes into biofuel. So the 0% of the waste on site goes to landfill. We minimise all of our plastics on site by saying that none of the concessions, none of the bars are able to have disposable plastics. So anything that gets used is made from natural fibres or is made from things that can be reused. For example, we've got reusable cups on site, which is a massive thing. We introduced it 3 years ago, and since we did, we haven't seen any rubbish, because there's a certain value attributed to that cup, and also it looks nice and you want to take it home with you. So those are the ways that we've been able to minimize our impact, and then through our programming, that's how we're able to maximize our messaging on it. So we really do care and we really do think about it. So again, thank you very much for asking that question, because I'm really happy to have been able to answer it. But recognize that we are putting these things to the forefront of our decision making at every single intersection. Nice. So that was a long answer. Next one, let's see where we're at. So what was it said? This year, I heard everything from the music was the best ever to people wanting more bands, more reggae, less drum and bass, basically every opinion under the sun. How do you juggle all that and decide what good vibrations should actually sound like? Well, that's a great question. Thank you very much for it. I take it very personally. I spend months and months curating the music at the event. I'm in the process at the moment of booking the headliners, and so that's a big part of how the rest of the music on site is informed. But to be honest, it's been really, really tough. So like, I'm a musician, I'm a singer. I've been for the last, well, as long as I've been breathing, really, I've been singing and listening to music. So I care a huge amount about the music at the event and making sure that it all fits into this kind of vision. But it's really tough. It's really hard to balance out everyone's wants, you know. When I read the feedback form at the end of this year, at the end of every year, sorry, yeah, it's just like, I want more bands, I want more DJs, I want more drum and bass, I want more house, I want more techno. I'd like to have some frog music in the forest, please. And it just like, literally, I'm never going to be able to please everyone. And I know that, I'm accepting of it. Maybe one day I will, as in like we'll be at the right size to be able to. I'm not sure we will be, to be honest. But you know what you see they can do with Glastonbury, an event like that, or with even an event of 20, 30,000 people. You know, you can create offerings for absolutely everyone. But we don't have that many stages. We've only got a certain amount of people, and there's a choice, and we've made a decision on that. So I've got to be really, really, really mindful of balancing it out on site. You know, and the way that I approach it is I want live music, I want to have some DJs, I want to have some chilled music, I want to have some agitating music, and all of that can fit together as long as I take my time, you know, and do it properly. And so yeah, that's really how I do it. Next question. Okay, nice. So a lot of us really miss wandering down to the lake in the woods this year. People and the fencing made the site feel smaller. Why are those areas closed off? Why do you think we'll ever get that open nature feeling back? Good question. Very, very good question. When I first started the show, I didn't want to have any fences, because we're right in nature, you know, and anything that we bring into nature is making it worse than what it currently is. It's good enough as it is. Leave it alone if you possibly can. The way that played out is quite a few people started breaking into the festival and not paying for the wristbands, which is obviously a bit of a nightmare. You know, we're not able to run the event unless we bring in enough money to be able to make it possible. And so suddenly I had to face the reality of that. And to be fair, when I was 18, I'd have probably tried it myself. So I had to realise that I needed to be a bit more cautious. And this year we certainly fenced off areas with a desire for safety and with a desire for like holding that energy within the space. But I do think we went a bit too far this year. And if we'd had more Harris fencing available, then we certainly wouldn't have made it quite as small as we did. But the plan for next year is to open that out again, to make sure that there is a hard border around the event, but also that there's points of access in and out, so that for people who have bought tickets can easily get out and go and explore it. And we're also working on a few exciting ways to explore the Ashdown Forest as well. So maybe that's going to come in the form of some more guided walks, or just some set walks that people can go on, and points of interest and things to look out for. So yeah, I really want to offer the opportunity for anyone coming to the event to explore the Ashdown Forest as it's right there. And so there's a balance there, you know, there's a balance between keeping the event, keeping the energy in there, and making sure that the door is open to the natural points of interest. Okay, next question. How did you get the funding? How did you get funding to start your own festival? I've always dreamed of doing that. And why did you want to do it? Very good question. So, having come from running festivals since I was 21, I'm aware of the different methods of funding an event. But a lot of people listening actually might not be aware of the way that it works. So, if you work with a ticketing agency and you have cancellation insurance for your festival, then that ticketing agency is legally allowed to release 75% of all the ticket funds as they come in throughout the year before the event. And so really that is the lifeblood of cash flow for festivals. So when those tickets get sold, the festival itself is able to take 3/4 of those and 3/4 of that money and put it into the costs. Of course, there's a risk associated with that, right? So if the event doesn't happen, what are you going to do? That's why you've got the cancellation insurance. Now, that doesn't necessarily answer the initial startup question. So in 2021, COVID was happening, right? It was a nightmare. For me personally, it was a nightmare. Having performed live probably 50, 60 shows a year over the last 15, 16 years, building up to COVID. That was my life, performing live, performing at shows and playing at festivals. And then COVID kicked in, and that instantly cut off. And having left uni, I became a teacher. But then since teaching, I've been running festivals and events companies. And the previous company that I ran, we started Outlook Festival in Croatia and Dimensions Festival in Croatia, and as well as a lot of other events and concerts. And that pretty much disappeared as a result of COVID as well, because we had a number of festivals booked, planned and paid for, and then the lockdown happened, and that summer wasn't a summer for events. It's a lovely summer otherwise. And so I was in a difficult situation, wanting to do something, wanting to try and use the skills and the passion that I've got in the right way. And so the actual foundations of this event, I was kind of quite mindful about who I was working with. So I am a musician. I know a lot of different musicians, and so I've got a good network there and people that I've got existing relationships with, so I could ask to come down and perform and maybe take a bit of a punt on an event that didn't have a reputation. Then working with Richard, whose site it is, we were able to work together with him in the first number of years where, if it all went tits up, we weren't in massive amounts of debt to a landowner. And then also with Doug Hunt, who has the production company, he's got a lot of the production himself. And so that was really the idea. It was like, I'll bring the music, you bring the production, and you bring the venue. And that sort of as a balance was almost everything we needed to kick it off. So we needed some startup funds. We dipped into our own pockets as deep as we could go to do that. But really, it's not a huge amount, actually, based upon what I've just said and that fundamental structure, and also the way that the cash flow through ticket sales works. Next question from a mum here that brought her kid to last year's event. She was saying that the kids area, the Hive that I explained earlier, made her weekend a lot easier. And what's our approach to designing spaces for families and little ones? I think it's a really good question. Thank you very much for that. So the event has really been created for this kind of group of people, right? Not exclusively for them, but almost in a particular age group. So that age group, kind of like mid-30s to like mid-50s. The music, that's where I am personally in my life, and so that's what I know about, that's what I care about. And a lot of people of my age have got families and have got kids, and so we realise, well, we have to make sure that there's a provision. We want to do it in our way rather than just following a particular template. I'm very lucky in the fact that my little sister Alice, works within play with kids, right? She's been working for a charity for a number of years, helping teachers and parents play with their kids and like take everyday items and repurpose them as toys, and that charity allowed her to explore her own passion for working with young people. And so she came into the event, and I asked her to offer that provision, and she created that. It was born out of her passion and her vision and her creativity. And so that space very much is for toddlers up to 10, 11, 12-year-olds who want to explore and play and make things and learn how to juggle and learn circus skills and learn how to both be and build a robot. And that Hive area just felt like it's kind of naturally grown. Interestingly, this year I realised that I needed to do more for teenagers. So obviously once you've gotten through that particular time in your life, there's a time where playing in a sandpit becomes a lot less cool. And so we're working at the moment on how we can offer things for like 12-year-olds to 16, 17, 18-year-olds, a space which isn't with the kids, with the children, but also a space that isn't just with the adults on site, because there's a safeguarding thing here, and there's making sure that there's like a stepping stone into that life. So we're looking at a provision potentially going to be divided up with the sexes, so specifically for girls and specifically for boys. We're looking at options to maybe put on an under-18s rave in one of the venues during the day. That's still watch this space as it comes along, and yeah, a space for people to feel safe and to feel like inspired as well. So within that, we'll have different projects and classes and things to do, as well as a space to hang out, which is relevant for that age group. Over the years of running the event, I realised that one thing that's just naturally grown out of what we do is this sense of safety. We're not a massive event, under 5,000 people. A lot of people already know each other because they're from an existing community, or they've been to the event several years consecutively now. And so there's this sense of ease, if you've got a kid, if you've got a teenager, that you don't need to be watching them constantly with the fear of the same fears that might come with bigger festivals, aka a pint of piss landing on your heads. that happens. I remember V Festival was pretty well known for that. So yeah, we're not that. We're smaller. We take more care. We try and keep our numbers to a volume so that people feel safe. My sense on an event is it feels small as long as I see strangers more than one time over that weekend. So that person wearing purple spandex on the Friday and dressed up like a duck on the Sunday, I might not know their name, but I've said hello and smiled, and so I feel kind of safe and like I know them. There's a lot that goes into that. But yeah, it's really a lovely question, because we do care, and we spent a lot of time and resource in developing that, and who knows where it'll go, but at the moment that's where we're at. The music absolutely slapped this year. Thank you very much. I take that personally to heart. So Solid, Soul to Soul, General Levy, a few of the people that they've called out, and also Not a Band, they're an amazing act that played in the Nest, and they simply play theme tunes from the 80s, like absolutely top draw. Why do you think it all landed so well, and how do you put together that kind of a mix? There's not a simple answer for that. There's so many different things that go into it. Over the last few years, we've upped our level of headliners, so we've put more money into it, and so let's track back. So this year, just gone Soul to Soul. The year before, more Chiba. The year before that, that's testing me. Maybe I think it was Roy Ayers the year before that. And anyway, to mention just a few of them really. But so we put more money into those headliners because we recognise that people really are going to respond well and get excited about songs that they grew up listening to, and tunes that were soundtracks to their youth, and us being able to bring acts who can then perform those, that really keys in and it works well. The general mix across the site is, quite selfishly, it's kind of music that I want to listen to, and I'm like sympathetic to everyone that comes and has requests, and I'll listen to people, and so there's certainly areas outside of my comfort zone that I go into. This year, particularly, I'm exploring this one area of music that I've never listened to, but maybe I can get an amazing band down, because actually listening to it, I really like the music. It's hard to say. There isn't one straight, simple act, but to get the balance, it's this combination of kind of positive music, exciting music, moments that you can sing along to, moments which you may cry to, moments of celebration, moments of quiet. And that's kind of how I navigate it. Right? So there's a lot of music in there which simply has soul in it, right? And it can be any genre as long as it's got some soul. It feels to me like it resonates well with what we're trying to do. And that can be really explorative, right? So like a couple of years ago, we had Goldie as our Friday night headliner. Drum and bass, pretty hectic, a lot of his productions, but I don't think you can argue that Goldie doesn't have soul. You know, when you listen to Timeless, when you listen to Inner City Life, when you listen to Mother, his like 60-minute epic tune about the mother he never knew, that's got hectic drums and it's got an intensity to that bass, and sometimes it can be quite harsh, but really the overriding effect is one of love and with soul in it. And so that's kind of the measure that I take. That's kind of like my rudder and my direction, and then I can explore loads of things that go off the back of that. And I'm doing it now. So for 2026, yeah, I'd love to be able to tell you a couple of those acts that we've got confirmed, but I'm not going to until January, because I need to wait until all of these things fit into place. One thing I can tell you is it's a very challenging process, because one change over here affects everything along there and along there. One headliner confirming versus, you know, another one dropping out, and how that impacts the other head. It's the balance, you know. It's a balance of acts that I know people are going to connect to. Final question. It's actually a combination of a couple, because they've been similar. Actually, two questions specifically. One from someone who just came this year for the first time, and then another from an OG who's been there every year. And the question is around magic, really, within the festival, and how we like keep that sense of magic as we grow, you know, and how can we expand without losing the core that makes it so special. And it's a really, really good question. It's a really good point for me to remember and take into any planning that I do around the event, because there is this balance, right? So we need to be at a certain point in revenue in order to get to sleep at night, and so that is a certain amount of people, you know, will need that amount of revenue to be able to do what we want, to be able to do things legitimately, have the right level of headliners, the right safety, the right level of toilets, the right level of sound system, and all of those things which cost money, right? And so we have to find a balance between those two. So I don't think we're ever going to get massive, right? I don't know. The plan at the moment is to take it year by year, and to, as I said before, breathe out, so everything has a chance to get a little bit bigger each year without, hopefully, therefore losing the core. So as long as we do it slowly and that we stop, you know, maybe we can think about it as climbing Everest. That's pretty dramatic, but you know, I haven't climbed Everest, although I did see the video that Red Bull did about someone who skied down Everest. And so I watched that the other day, and one thing that clocked me was, or the one thing I clocked was that there was, I think there's 4 different camps, a base camp and 1, 2, 3 and 4. And so I suppose this metaphor I'm going to use is similar to that. So once we get up to that next camp, as we scale this festival mountain, we take stock. You know, we get a night's sleep and we listen. We do all of the questionnaires every year. We sit down as a group of directors, but then as a wider group of staffing team, management team, and then a wider staffing team. And we're listening, bringing back information that we didn't previously know. And then we're building that into our plan, right? So hopefully at that camp, over that, you know, those months following each event, we're able to really realize what happened, recognize what we need to do differently and what we need to keep exactly the same. I think a good example of that is the Hive, is the kids area, where it's grown a little bit each year, but has kept the core, has kept the love, you know, and the reason, because it's the same staffing, it's the same core set of values that are applied to anything new and any growing that happens. And I suppose we're applying that to each of those areas. And if we add something new, we add a new area, then the reason for that is born out of the community. So every edition should be adding to the magic rather than taking away. So that's it. That's the first Good Vibrations podcast. It's an absolute pleasure. I'm really happy to be here. Hopefully, if you stayed this long, right, we obviously are doing something right. So thank you very much for grinding out with us. And please do stay tuned, stay plugged into what we're doing. Just an invitation, again, to ask your questions. I want to know exactly how you're feeling. I want to know if there's any ideas, if there's any questions, any queries about what we do, or anything. I want to know anything. All right, what sort of toothpaste are you using in the morning? Let me know. All right, I'm interested.